Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tracy Show. And before we get started, yes, I know it's not 7 o'clock. I know we're getting a later start because I have vacation Bible school. I had to leave early there to make this interview, but next week we'll be right back on at 7. Before we get started, I want to pay a couple of bills here first. Hit that subscribe button. We are at 423, which means we are, I hope my math is good, 77 subscribers away from 500. Hit that subscribe button, smash it, obliterate it, destroy it, and also hit the notification button to know when I go live. Help me to get to 500 so then I can go to 1,000, but I got to get to 500 first. I greatly appreciate it. You can support me on Patreon. Patreon support allows me to get better lighting, better equipment, eventually someday a desk and a chair so that I don't have to sit on my bed and do this. Um, yes, yes, support me on Patreon. Patreon support starts at $2 per month. Um, that's what, 50 cents a week? It's doable. So please support me on Patreon. Um, I forgot to put up one link here, and I'm going to put it up really, really quick. Um, support. Oh boy, this is what happens when you get in a hurry to do things, but I'll get it as quickly as I can. Let me put this link up here. Finally, contribute to the First Baptist North Drama Camp, which I cannot believe that the drama camp starts this Saturday. 8 weeks of us providing theater training to youth in the city of Indianapolis. We're trying to raise $3,500. We would appreciate any donation, large or small. Thank you so much. I see Theus has checked in. Hello, Theus. You may, sir, introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. It's great. It's been a minute since I've been on the program with you. I'm Hector Roos. I'm a libertarian party activist. Currently the chair of the largest county affiliate in Florida, in Miami. I'm active in a lot of different projects. I even ran for governor in 2022 in Florida for the Libertarian Party. I guess the recent news that I get to share with you is that the Florida legislature just agreed to do a first in the nation thing, which is to put on the a state ballot this November to the voters, asking them to expand homestead, so that is to say, homestead property tax exemptions or relief, with the goal of actually eliminating it altogether. That's the first in the nation news. So this would be a big thing because Florida is the third largest state in the country. Where Florida goes, the rest of the country goes. So I'm just excited to be here and share good news like that, where affordability meets limited government principles, and just here to join you and see where this goes.
For some reason, I thought you were running for office.
I have been not this cycle itself. I'm supporting a great candidate who's running for Florida governor. His name is Scott Jewett. I have been, and we have a number of other congressional candidates, and even in Miami, I have my vice chair, my affiliates running for county office. So the libertarians in Florida are very busy. So I would be happy to definitely introduce you and to your audience to the score of them that are out there. that are running for office and doing the good work of promoting our ideas.
That would be great. But I literally thought, oh, well, I literally thought you were running for United States Senate. I don't know why I had this in mind. I literally don't. But that's okay. We can talk about the ideas behind the third party. That's totally fine. Um, you know, you know me. You know me in the Libertarian Party. We kind of butt heads.
Sure.
So if my questions come across crass, I'm going to apologize for them up front, but I'm only asking because I don't believe in having um, a vacuum conversation where every voice is the same voice. Um, but now I'm taking these questions into another number, but that's okay. I can do it. First question, I'll do it this way. So we often hear as third party voters, and when I talk to third party candidates, I'm going to start asking this question again. When third party candidates run, especially for the federal offices, not necessarily your local offices, but now I'm talking about federal offices, especially President of the United States. We always hear a vote for a third party candidate, in this case, a libertarian candidate, is a waste of time. You're taking away votes. How do you answer that? Because I answer it in a different way, but I want to hear how you answer it first.
It's a great, it's the common question. I think the important reply is what makes their vote. Why do they think their vote matters in the first place? If you're not having any influence on the outcome, do we actually have, what's it actually worth? So libertarians and other minor parties, right, are essentially just asking people, let us know what you're consenting to. What agreements do you have? And the we have a couple ways of doing that. One of them happens to be the ballot box. I want you to be very aware. Consent, we should all promote a society based on consent, right? Not manipulation, not force. And what ends up happening is the politicians start getting a little concerned when people say, well, I'm going to stop paying my taxes because I don't agree with this, or I'm going to vote for somebody else because I don't agree with this. If enough people, and I'm not talking about like everybody, I'm talking about 1% of the population just change their mind on and their behavior in a certain direction, it completely undermines the credibility of policymakers that say that they're doing this for our benefit, right? Because enough people are withdrawing consent even to do that much. Hope that makes it. So it's the political class responds to that, even if that's not necessarily what people see, believe and are practicing on a regular basis. We have to promote this idea because the politicians really do care about this. I mean, they do, and they react to it. We see it all the time.
Oh boy, I had a different answer. My answer has always been it's your vote. How much did you pay for it? It's yours. It doesn't belong to you. It's a vote. You have to, I don't know this word called earn it, speak to people, build consensus, build coalitions, et cetera, et cetera. This entitlement, especially the Democrats, especially the Democrats have this whole sense of, well, you have to vote for us or you'll get the other guy. Well, no, you're just like the other guy. I literally can't tell the difference. I mean, there's a difference between Trump and Biden. There just is. Trump, but his policies, Biden had exactly the same policies. Giving money for, I don't think any war is necessary. I don't think any war is necessary for moral and financial reasons. More money to Israel, the building of the military industrial complex. They're not different. They literally aren't different. But to say, oh, you have to vote for us. No, I don't.
Absolutely right. There isn't much daylight between them, if there is any daylight, and that's part. of our system that actually promotes basically a one party dominance, and we're just switching back between, red or blue, or, you know, and it's not working for people, right? That's the other part. Half of voting age adults in America aren't even registered to vote, right? And then the other half doesn't show up to vote, and then you're down to the half that does show up to vote has already made up their mind, and and the half of what's left is just that 1% to 3% that's always deciding these elections, and that's where our influence comes in, because there is no political opposition out there except what you and I are doing. So our voices actually matters more. Opposition voices matter more because we're the only ones that are addressing the dissenting opinion. Can we do it better? Uh, let's stop touching the kids. How about no more wars, right?
It's just so it's sometimes it's frustrating because you hear people talking about my congressperson is terrible. They are awful. And then they go right in the booth if they even bother to vote and they vote for that exact same that frustrates me to the uttermost. I don't know. Let me rephrase my question because I don't want to go off on rants. I'm interviewing you, not me ranting. But here's something. I'll do it this way. Here's um what I will say. And I'll ask this question specifically about the Libertarian Party, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Libertarian Party obviously stands for liberty. I'm just assuming this. And to me, it's more of a conservative leaning party. This is just my opinion. Of course, you can tell me, Trace, no, you're wrong. They think, sometimes when I talk to libertarians, they come in one of two batches. Either they want to cut all social spending, like no welfare, no SNAP, no Social Security, no Medicare for all. But then you get the more liberal that say, no, I don't like it, but if we're going to do it, we should cut from this, like cut from wars and spend it on Social Security. Where do you fall in
So,
on that?
well, the Libertarian Party is truly a big tent party, right? So they all agree. Everyone agrees the government is too big, isn't serving the people, and that needs to change. Now, where we differ are towards some of the solutions, like you've heard. Some people say we have to go mega cut, right? Other people say no. These people are dependent on these public services, and we need to act in a different direction with off ramps or opt outs for people who are don't want to be dependent on the system. They can enter into a different program, privately. There are better solutions than having to look at government solutions, and rely on only government solutions. In other words, and then there's just people who just like talking about philosophy all day, right? Either way, the point is that how do we get there in a meaningful solution that seems to work? And I'm the guy who just focused on solutions, right? That's where I like to live. That's where I think the people need to be having this conversation. Thankfully, we have two ways of looking at this in terms of solutions. You do have people who will make the deals to do some type of restructuring a government where you basically don't have politicians making decisions for everybody else, and it lets it go to the private sector to make that decision. Like in Argentina, they've been doing a lot of that. Uh, or in the space that we've seen in the United States, there are people who have been talking, make some deals with the winner of the election, or to try and determine, push the outcome of the election in one direction, where you can promote policy decisions. It won't change everything, but it'll be specific policy ideas. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dropped out of the election the last go around with the promise that he would be able to be a part of reshaping healthcare policy in America, right, in a direction that was more open, and more consent, restoring the consent and the doctor-patient relationship, as opposed to captured crony capitalism and big pharma and that. So there are two modes to doing this, and uh, the the typical, what liberal cause of we still want to, we think we have good ideas because we think uh, because we think other people are just misinformed about what the solutions are, so we'll just mandate for people to do it XYZ. That always exists, and that's always a temptation to try to continue that. But overall, we still need to find ways to move the ball forward, move it toward liberty, move it away from central planning, move it away from politicians making the decisions based on really political leanings, and maybe even how can I help my friend make money, off of taxpayers. So trying to get away from that and toward allowing people to act in a free market and outside of mandates and outside of regulations that only stifle competition or protect big companies and really friends of the politicians that are trying to capture that market for themselves instead.
Here's what, and I'm going to bring this to Florida where you are at, because I always start federally and then I kind of bring it local. I'm going to use this example because it's something I've advocated for. I've been an activist a long time, and that's Medicare for all. No, it's like you're not going to talk me out of it. I think that the insurance we have now, this for-profit model, is a terrible model. Insurance companies using AI to approve or deny care is reprehensible. Healthcare causes more bankruptcies than anything in this country. But I don't hear the libertarians say anything. Well, what I hear from some libertarians is just, well, just let the system run and capitalism will just kind of make it all right. And I'm like, no, prices, my premiums at work, they went up. We have um, possibly 300,000 people in Indiana that won't receive Medicare anymore because our governor has decided, oh, well, they don't need it. They only need it for, no, I'm sorry, that's not true. They only need it for 3 years. Well, that doesn't, in that sense, I don't know if that's the message that the libertarians want to get out, but I'm like, no, this is, to me, it makes more sense for it to be centralized, like in other countries, like in Europe and even China in some portions. But what we have now is terrible. We have a healthcare system that, I keep saying it's terrible, but I'll sound like a broken record. It's terrible.
Uh, Absolutely. Right now, you have it's not just terrible. It's designed to make keep people sick, right? I think we can all agree that healthcare, is a misnomer, right? Uh, for what we're having today is people asking for help, and they're basically just being allowed to treat symptoms, because that's what the big corporate healthcare space is allowing. I've written essays on the subject myself on this. Uh, I've worked in this space as well. I can tell you in like the administrative side, public safety net hospitals, or and private providers. But the point the libertarians champion the free market. Capitalism is not the same thing as saying free market, because what we have right now is a market that is completely dominated by a special interest, by for-profit healthcare providers, that push out their competition. At the end of when I first joined the Libertarian Party, one of the first people I heard explain the position on libertarian position on healthcare was that when we hear like Medicaid for all, or that healthcare is a right. More importantly, what we libertarians stand by is that access to healthcare is of your choice is a right, right? So the issue of being denied care should never happen in a free market, because then you can just go to a different doctor and get the healthcare treatment that you need. Uh, in During COVID, we kind of saw what happens when government really centralizes things in America. We see that we saw that medical a treatment plan was, especially in Florida, was being offered to people to treat COVID-19. And what happened is, if you rejected the treatment plan, and you wanted to leave the hospital, they would medically kidnap you and keep you there, and you would need to go get a court order to be released. I mean, that's, you take the thing to the ultimate, to its ultimate, like, consequence, and that's exactly what happens. Where, like you said, denial of care, but also forcing you into care, that against your will. So if they can, that'll be the end, consequence. But if we have alternatives, the classic example of in the free market example of healthcare is the eyeglasses, right? It's not that regulated. You can still order prescriptions from over the mail now. So the cost of and the actual material for the frames has dropped in price as well. So the cost of eyewear that used to be from, I remember buying eyeglasses, prescription eyeglasses, the whole combo, and even the service, I was paying like $400, and now I'm definitely not paying more than 100. So when competition is allowed to work and people are looking for those deals, they will find them if you're allowed to find them, if they're allowed to be options for you. So and there are places, speaking for the Medicare for All specifically, there are states and communities that want to be generous and tackle, especially the primary healthcare needs, right? Educating nutrition, doing checkups, and educating people on what diseases are prevalent in a particular season, and their community should voluntarily be able to basically come together and say, we're going to do this. We're going to have these clinics that offer these services. For the most part, the American people have historically been very generous in offering people who don't have resources this kind of services, because they knew it's a good for everybody when everybody's healthy, right, and being and productive and not spreading disease. So that's there is what got in the way, of course, was the creation of the FDA and the centralized medicine. Actually, and just ended up being a couple of politicians and their friends getting together to agree who's going to make money here. But that's the difference between a small community and taking all the decisions, centralize all the decisions to DC, where if you're Indiana, you're still 3,000 miles away. I'm about the same, actually, from Florida. So that's what we're trying to avoid and promote, is better decision making locally at best, and all the way down to the individual.
Okay, because I'm gonna have several problems with what you just said. I get
Sure.
where you're going. I just don't agree with which is probably why I'm not a libertarian. But here's what I will say. As a type 1 diabetic, the what, 2 million of us across the nation. There's 40 million that have type 2 diabetes, but there's about a million or so of us that have type 1. Going to, let me rephrase this, going to a clinic, which I think you're talking about like a free clinic type where the cost would be very, very low, or somehow on some type of sliding scale. Here's a couple of problems with that model that I see, that I don't know how the Libertarian Party would want to address this. Number one, it's very hard to find doctors that are willing to volunteer because they're not getting paid to do that. They're just
Mhm.
and doctors have to eat, doctors have to pay their bills, doctors have to take care of themselves. The second thing is you can't just offer care any place. You have to have a building with equipment, with stethoscopes and medical equipment. You can't just offer it free-nilly on the street with a cup and say, "Oh, this is a clinic." That it doesn't work. There are rules set in place so we can provide people a safe place to receive medical care. Yes, we can cut red tape, but we still have to take into effect, or or the party has to address the cost of healthcare to get, let's see, I recently got an MRI just last week. And I was like, well, how much does this cost? I just went on and said, how much is an MRI of the body part that I got an MRI of? They had anywhere from 5 to 5,000 for a simple MRI. So until the overall cost is addressed, and that's why I'm for it. Because Medicare for All comes in and says, no, you can't charge this. You can only, well, you can charge whatever you want, but we're only going to reimburse you for this amount. And what it does is it takes it away from the insurance companies, which I'm for because, again, I don't even see why insurance companies should exist. They're nothing but a barrier to getting care. They're just a unnecessary barrier. So I would wonder, is there a plan? Because I think Thea's asked the same question, is what plan does the Libertarian Party actually have to make sure that people are getting that care, to make sure that, again, I'm not for the free clinic model because, again,
Right.
it's very hard to find doctors that are willing to volunteer their
Well,
time.
yeah. Let me get on. Let me express that you're right. If you're on a volunteer basis with doctors, you're going to have to work around their schedule. 100%. It's not. You get what you pay for, literally. So so that's, and I grew up that way. I grew up. My family grew up rather poor, and we had to use community health. The clinics that were provided by local government. Uh, but on the other side is what is the libertarian plan for healthcare? Well, first of all, we have to recognize that no that changes, drastic changes to healthcare policy is not, like ending programs themselves, is not what's going to happen. We're going to end the bureaucracies, like you said, bureaucracies that, for instance, are the low hanging fruit. Like look at the cost of a vial of insulin, right? That's a good example that during the first Trump administration, it was somewhere around $12. During the Biden administration, it went up to 35. And what was the difference? It was just regulations. And you're still not allowed to actually import it from Mexico, which is selling it for under $1. Right? So that's where's the real what is actually the market? There's a lot of distortion in the market that have created uncertainty for the people, and that's not fair to them because all of a sudden you're asked to spend 30 times more than what the actual market rate is for vital medicine. No wonder their people are saying this is an insulin epidemic because the things that are treating it aren't even available to the public. There is, well, people have to plan. It's very good to say we have no plan, but what is the plan? What's the alternative plan, right? What's the better plan? Libertarians are saying we shouldn't basically throw everything out the window, and we're saying what will help people right now? What will give them the relief? Build on that one thing at a time. Whether it's like the insulin example that I said. Yes, people unfortunately do die for the sin of being poor. That happens. The poor will always be with us. So, but the point is that people who are depending on the system right now, they're not going to be thrown out. If a libertarian could wave a magic wand and say we're going to do, it has all the power to actually do this, you'd still want uh, to reduce dependencies but improve access at the same time. There's just so much fat that's put into the system because, like you said, the third party system because of the private insurers, or Medicaid is not working because really the Affordable Care Act exchanges really don't work either. And now there's scarcity because people don't want to, even in the private sector now, people don't want to accept, the healthcare providers don't want to accept people who are only Medicaid, right, patients, because the reimbursement rates for them are so slow, right? Or they don't reimburse a lot of money compared to private insurers, so they're just only servicing. They're not servicing those kind of patients then as a result, or you have to wait a long time. And again, back to scarcity. So people are going to people have to be able. If you ultimately libertarians don't want people to die, of course, They want people to have access to healthcare they can get, right? Whether that is whether then they should not go broke for it. They should be able to figure out it. Get away from the dependencies that the state and federal governments are imposing on them, and say, well, what other solutions can I do? A lot of libertarians support doing the coupon system. There's time, like in the VA, right? You're tying money to the actual patient, and they can go take that coupon, and they can go to someone, a private healthcare provider, not the VA, in order to get the service they need, instead of continuing to wait in line months and months. So reducing this is a solution of reducing the wait times, providing access to treatments and consultations, and the more and of course reducing the regulations that would reduce the cost on prescription drugs, because that and even that is probably the number one concern that people are having. The cost of healthcare is just keeps going up. Actually, everything that the government's touching these days is just going up and up and up. So the only, we apply the same broad brush to everything, but ultimately we don't want to make we're not inhumane and say that we have to apply cuts, like you said at the beginning of the segment. We don't want to apply cuts to healthcare. We'd rather apply cuts to the military. That just makes sense. We don't need to have the world's largest military at the same time that people are going to debt for education or medicine.
And I'm going to definitely move on to local issues in the state of Florida. But here's what I will say before I move on to my question. Um, I think since the last time we spoke, I went on the insulin pump. And boy, did I get curious. I didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it. And my doctor was like, you'll thank me. And I do. I now thank him for saying, hey, you need to be on this insulin pump. A1C is good, weight's gone down, all those positive things. But
Great.
here is the caveat, and this is what I would love the party to think about. Insulin pumps are not cheap. And I happen to have what's called the Mercedes Benz of all insulin pumps. See, I let. If you want to, Omnipod is like the Toyota Camry, and iLet is like the Mercedes Benz of insulin pumps. $3,500 for just the pump, not the the
The
the
cartridges,
supplies,
yeah.
just the machine itself. Without, if I hadn't met my out-of-pocket maximum, there's no way I would have gotten it. And what I think what I'm saying, I hope I'm saying it's clear, is that barrier should not exist. Do we need more research in terms of what can cure diabetes, like what Cuba is doing? Yes, I said Cuba. Cuba actually has pioneer research in diabetes, but we had this stupid embargo on their whole country because, well, Trump's an idiot. Um, do we need to be doing more of that? Do we need to be doing what China is actually doing, in some cases, curing type 1 diabetes? We never hear about these things because the whole thing is set up to keep us dependent. And that's what I'll say about that. So now get to local issues in the state of Florida. You all have a governor. Um, you're about to elect another one. Um, who did you say was running in? Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, there's a whole lot of comments in the comment section that I didn't get to. I'm just gonna run through them. We'll start with this. Says at the same time, parties need to earn every vote they get, which is not being done. That's an earlier discussion. Nelson's in the House. For decades, we have been going back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, giving us little to no change at all. We need to finally get away from the madness. Absolutely. Um, Thea says you just used RFK as an example of a desired approach. Now we have hookworm, measles, a broken CDC, and withdrew from international health organizations. How is that better? Then Thea followed it up. Which part? Oh, you got that question. Da, 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 da. Translation, we had no plan, just don't like what exists. That's people. Oh, we got that. Um, And finally, we all agree cuts are needed. The problem is, what's the plan to move to fast break? If I could read, what we all agree that cuts are needed. The problem is, what is the plan? The the move fast and break thing is not a plan, and it
So
kind of cuts off.
it's interesting because we're having two different conversations. That we're having a conversation about who should be making healthcare decisions and how should healthcare services be delivered, and the other side of it is how do we pay for it, right? So these two questions are they're related, but they're not the same. So, example, if I was going to talk to you about how to pay for it, there's an expanding movement in each of the states that use the nonprofit charities and something called a direct primary care agreement that uses basically a pay scheme or a pay sheet, right? Set list of pricing that people have for regular health medical services. They combine that with a medical charity that people pay a certain amount of money into. I mean, something like $50 for a family of three or four a month. I mean, and in Florida, a couple of years back, they approved that model, which has been used in like states like Nevada and out west, uh, to really significantly lower household healthcare costs. In Florida, they approved it as direct primary care, is what they called it. People sometimes call it. This is a different mode, but there are different ways that do not rely on private insurers to structure payments or to negotiate down costs down reasonably to reasonable amounts. So again, when you're dealing with a third party payer system that we have, whether it's especially with the government ones that we depend on, the prices are going to be all over. Are going to be as high as they need to be in order to capture as much capital as possible. Uh, if you're in a private insurance, they will try to keep you in the hospital setting for as long as possible, uh, and maybe it's for your good, but arguably maybe you could have left a day earlier, right? So they could continue to charge up your private healthcare to try and squeeze as much of that capital. So why? Because they're obligated by law to accept anybody, regardless, to give healthcare to anybody who can't afford it, right? And so they're trying to balance or do this business of a balance sheet, which is this horrible dance, right? Because if they really can't take you, they'll send you to another hospital, right? Ultimately, so this money question of who's going to pay for for these services, and then do we need the service at the end of the day, are two very important questions about public policy and government and how much we're going to allow politicians to make these decisions for us. So just want to make sure that it's clear. There are these two separate conversations that are happening, and the things and so it's not always too clear about which one we're talking about at a given moment. Like when somebody's complaining about RFK Jr. and his decisions as the Health and Human Services Secretary. Which part is it, right? Do we want to get away from the politics of medicine? People talk to each other all the time. They write journals. They pick up the phone. But trying to set healthcare policy on a global basis, that's just more politics on top of on top of DC time, trying to tell everybody what their healthcare decisions should be too. So anyway, just wanted to bring it home on that note.
I understand. So, who did you state that was running for governor under the Libertarian Party in Florida?
Scott Jewett. So it's SCOTT. Jewett is spelled JEWETT.com. Yeah, he's
Um,
got his. So I can drop you his.
and normally I
So,
don't do this because I know you're not Scott, but
sure.
um, I'm certain he went through like whatever the process is to become the nominee. He doesn't. I'm just going to assume libertarians make the ballot in the state of Florida. Am I correct in saying that?
Right, right. In Florida we have a constitutional right to the ballot. We just have to stroke a check basically at worst.
Okay, so you should his candidacy should be on um the ballot. Like he shouldn't have any problems making the ballot.
No, he just qualified yesterday.
Okay, so he's on the ballot.
Right.
So I'm looking at his site and um usually I'm looking for the platform, but his looks like his main thing is I will fix homeowners insurance, which I understand for Florida is a big, 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 big issue because if I'm right, which I could be wrong, but um insurance companies are not wanting to insure Florida homeowners, correct?
We right. There is a shortage on available plans, and that scarcity has increased the cost immensely for property insurance. And
Okay, and I'm
generally,
still
we had a public option. And this is with a public option that exists in the state of Florida.
okay. And so again, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of details. He says he'll fix it, but I'm not seeing how. And I know that's got to be an issue because Florida tends to be hurricane capital of the United States. Um,
Yeah. Oh, one year we got hit with five hurricanes. So, and that was like within the last 10 years. So he
and
has
I
a
think
he ha-
there's
mhm.
yeah, I was gonna say I think there's a team down there in Jacksonville that wants a new tax supported stadium.
Yeah, yeah. The billionaires want money for their to make. They want the public to pay for a new stadium. The old stadium's already been demolished, and they are another example of billionaire welfare. Can you tell me which? You and I agree that billionaire welfare should not be a word that exists in our vocabulary, but there it is.
Okay, so I had to finally find it. And again, it looks like I can reach out to him to have one of the show. But I wanted to talk about here, you can download what he's calling a white paper Florida home insurance reform. And it was issued March the 26th. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is 2024. It says homeowners insurance in Florida is a broken system. Of the approximately 43 billion paid by Florida homeowners last year, 26 billion was spent on litigation, which seems like that's well not that's half plus some. Okay, 10 billion on adjusters and profits, only 7 billion were paid out for claims. So, if I'm reading this right, and I could be reading it wrong, there's no law in Florida that says, "Hey, this much you can't spend that." That seems like a lot to me.
So, so yes, Florida home insurance is scary. What is a lot the common practice is that somebody can set up a company from overnight that's going to get all these policies together. They'll be backed by the Florida taxpayer and the reinsurance fund, and then storm comes and they'll pay off maybe a small portion of the claims, then just go bank, keep the money and go bankrupt, and then they're allowed to open up another business within a year, the same business within a year. So basically,
So,
it's structured.
okay,
It's legal fraud. What's happening?
yeah, that's what. Okay, so now I'm good because again, I don't live in Florida. I live
Hmm.
in Tornado Alley. We haven't had a
Hmm.
tornado in like almost a year and a half. So, and this is a question for Scott, and trust me, I have his website, so I'm gonna see can I contact him to ask him this
Yep.
specifically. But wouldn't it be better to say, hey, Florida, if you do that, you have to wait more than a year to start another company. Like you've got to wait at least 7, 8, maybe a decade before you get to start a whole nother company.
Right. There's not a strong enough punishment for taking these companies, going bankrupt, and then starting a new one, and repeating the same frustrating process all over again, and
That's what I was getting to.
right,
Thank
with
you.
a
That's what I was
bailout.
trying to say. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, let me do this again. And that's where I'm like, well, wait a minute, because that doesn't seem there's no incentives. If I'm Shiesty home
That's right.
insurance company, I could just start a company, just kick it in the courts for long enough, don't really pay anything, then declare bankruptcy, which is why it would actually benefit me. I don't know. Bankruptcy benefits businesses, not individuals. That's a whole different discussion, but I'll have that sometime later. If it's benefiting them, and Florida says, hey, we're here to benefit the people, I guess again, this is a Scott question. Why not make that? Hey, you can't start, you can start any other type of business that you want. You can start an ice cream stand, you can start a restaurant, you can start something else, but you can't be in this lane as a punishment. Because if there's no punishment, just like you just said, they're just going to keep doing the same thing. And one company will be called the ABC company, and then they'll go out of business, and then they'll be called the BCD company, and they'll go out of business, and they'll be called the CDE company, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no punishment. There's no recompense. There's just, okay, we're being screwed, so let's go.
That's exactly what's happening in Florida, and in general when the process for how these things are regulated is opaque. It's not in public view. Then the politicians can basically get away with it. Uh, there's not like a vote that people get to have that's this is the system we want to reject this. So again, when it comes back to the beginning of our conversation, what's the meaning of our vote? We just want to say no more, right? So I don't care which incumbent, whoever's the incumbent, we can just vote against it. It says we just want to throw out the entire system the way it works. Yeah,
Right, right, and that's I'm looking at this site again because um I literally don't see what I'm looking for.
I mean
I
the
mean,
PDF.
most of the things here, I'm like, abortion should be a decision between a woman and her doctor, not the government. I 100% agree with that. Here's where I kind of maybe have some question. And this is a libertarian question also. When he states he wants to states that government should serve as a protector of personal freedoms, a lifeline for the disadvantaged, and a shield for national defense while respecting individual autonomy in all other aspects of life. As governor, he would commit to the reducing of unnecessary spending and taxation. In Florida, what would be an example of an unnecessary, although I can guess, unnecessary spending or unnecessary taxation?
Well, it depends on which government agency we're talking about. The way this anyone, right? So this is how budgets are approved in Florida. We got more money, we're going to spend that money, right? No justification needed. We just got more money, so we don't have to justify because it just came in, and we didn't have to get voter approval to have more money. So that's where we come back to that property insurance thing, right? So same thing. Basically, at the end of the day, we're talking about government is so large, even in the state of Florida, it's just so much bigger than it used to than it was 10 years ago. That where's all this demand for services? That where's all this new demand for services that is justifying these increased budgets? Uh, let me. This is what I told the CNN reporter I was talking to today about this property taxes, uh, you, they, the revenue just keeps going up and up and up because it's based on property valuations that of unrealized gains of property, right? If you had sold your property today at what we think you could have sold it, we're going to charge you a tax based on that new amount. Um, the voters didn't vote on that, vote for that tax increase. It happened automatically. So the local governments keep getting all these new money that they didn't have to be responsible for asking the taxpayer to get permission to get that money for, and then they spend it however they want, and then they say, well, see, we need more money now because our expenditures last year were higher than the budget we have now, right? So That's now they're crying foul that that system's not working for them, but it was never working for the taxpayers. The point is again that money we're getting. Uh, there isn't a vote for how much money they collect or how they spend or the new programs that they're creating to spend that money on. And this extends all the way back to healthcare space. Who says that? Who asked for this regulation that changed the cost of a vial of insulin from $12 to 35 when I can still get it in Mexico for less than $1? Like who voted on this? Right? It wasn't you or me. And then who voted to actually spend $35 of taxpayer money per vial of insulin uh, to this to actually approve the expenditure instead of going to Mexico and buying it from them. Like who's actually making these decisions? And that's why regardless of who's in charge, things tend not to change, and they just tend to get actually more expensive, while you and I have to work harder in order to make ends meet.
So here comes my question, because again, this is where because I tell all my libertarian guests the same thing. I'm not trying to start a fight. I really am. I'm not. I want to listen. I want to learn. But it's hard for me when I support a candidate. I support a candidate. I support them with my time, my finances, anything that I do. I'm gonna make that person becomes a part of my orbit. I'm having a problem doing that with libertarians, and I'll tell you why. Because you just said, or this I says, well, unnecessary government spending. So let's just say the libertarians are successful in Florida in cutting government expenses. Ultimately, in my opinion, I could be wrong, I'm not an economic expert at all. Somebody's job or somebody's pay is going to get cut, from what I'm understanding libertarians to be saying. Now, maybe they're not saying this, but this is what I'm hearing, right? So when you talk about cutting the fat off the cutting government fat, are you talking about cutting supplies? Are you talking about cutting fuel costs? Are you talking about cutting travel? Are you talking about cutting spaces that the government rents? How do libertarians propose making those cuts, but not at the expense of people? Because there are people with government jobs. There's
Right.
trash collection, there's well, no, not prison guards, because that's private. That's a whole
We
different
have
thing.
we have
Um,
it mixed in Florida, public and private prison guards or prisons. So that's a great
where I'm not, yeah, that's where I'm having the issue, is
right.
because what I'm hearing libertarians say is, well, just cut everything. And I'm like, well, what happens to, like, what type of cuts? Is this going to
Right.
be a reduction in labor? That's not, we need more jobs created. Yes, people can start business, but I don't know any business. If your credit score isn't a certain thing, it's going to be real hard for you to go to a bank and say, hey, loan me $50,000, and your credit score is 480 or in the 500s. You got to be at least 650 or above, probably seven.
A
So
hundred
where
percent.
I
So
don't
so I'm at
get, yeah, I don't get it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
so there's a couple big issue items, right? That everyone agrees, at least in Florida, that 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 shouldn't that is so expensive that we should stop that, right? So for instance, you said private prisons, right? Well, private this we have private prisons in Florida that are they're taking we have one of the largest prison populations in the country. Well, why? Well, because we want. Oh, why do we do that? Is because we have mandatory minimum sentencing requirements. That's just that was lobbied for by a private prison company, right? That who has a contract with the state of Florida and the Bureau of Prisons to take those prisoners. So we have to stop this kind of behavior, which is basically influence peddling to generate all these contracts. You've heard of the expression "school to prison pipeline." I'm sure you have. So we're taking all those resources that should be going to schools and at the very least, or educational programs and programs to reduce recidivism, and programs to, we have a million ex-felons in the state of Florida who obviously they need to check the box, but if they check the box, they're disqualified from employment, even though they've served their time and compensated society. These are, and we have like there's still a police force out there that says if you don't check it, and you're lying on these applications, you could be going back to jail because you just broke another law, right? You perjured yourself on an official form. So unlike for the background checks, right? Um, there are a lot of unintended consequences, additional cost burdens to our economy, we can see some of it up front, and we can see some of it they're lagging. Like, why do we spending so much time with repeat offenders? Because they don't have any other option but to go out and steal again because they can't get a regular job or even regular housing because they have a scarlet letter in their record from when they were like 17. This is unfortunately, this is where Florida is at right now, and it's obviously a problem in the greater society. Uh, but going back to the original question though is libertarians, if you're going to talk about cuts, really the question is where do you prioritize these things? So you look at these contracts that exist, that are bloated contracts with government contractors. We already see this in the federal government with the military industrial complex guys, but at a state level, that looks like the private prisons. That looks like other types of security contracts. It definitely looks like why are we keep building the same stretch of highway twice over, right? Kind of those kind of boondoggles. But we're talking about, when you're looking for a teacher, looking for like teacher pay increases in a county, and you say, well, how can we find the extra $5 million? Well, the state of Florida just approved $1 billion for alligator Alcatraz that they're not going to get reimbursement from the federal government on, right? Well, that could have just taken care of the entire budget shortfall for education and these type of social programs. So those aren't things don't want to cut. You want to cut the actual programs that aren't working. And by the way, the immigration. So this immigration enforcement program, it's so bad that they're transporting one guy from Orlando down to Alligator Alcatraz in Miami, and they're saying that transfer that they're doing for less than 1,000 people uh, to justify that location again cost $1 billion. Where did it come from? It came just from regular taxpayers. So at least in Florida, I can't speak for other states, but I've been looking at, I live in Florida, so this is where I look at. There is fat, there is waste, and and this is true of any time there's no accountability for how these policies and programs are put together in the first place. They have the money, and they just spend it and say, well, we didn't need a vote from the taxpayer to spend it, to even collect it, so we can spend it however we want. And that's the whole system that is not based then on good planning, good judgment, wisdom. It's just based on supporting the growth and the success of the bureaucracy.
And when is the election for Florida's governor?
It's going to be the first Tuesday of November. So that
This
would
November,
be
not next November?
this November. So second Tuesday. So that would be
So
the
you
10th.
all are odd year. Because we line ours up with the
Midterms.
president. You guys go
Right.
after. Okay, that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. Right.
Okay. So final question again. And this is, like I said, this is what, when I hear a libertarian talk, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm hearing. That impression may be wrong and I'm just not understanding. But another thing that I actually agree with, I actually like, yeah, that's actually a good thing that libertarians do. And I think libertarians, Greens, PSL, socialists, we can all work together on this, is the um, charter school. system, which in our state, it's really bad. No, let me backtrack that. I'm going to talk about data centers. I'm going to talk about, uh, um, because this has got my attention. I forgot that Florida does not have state income tax. We do, um, and our taxes just went up. And we're talking about a $100 increase of taxes to pay for our road construction. Yay, us in Indianapolis. But anyway, what I'm getting to is this. How do you see the libertarians, the Greens, PSL, socialists, New Black Panther Party, what have you, working together in Florida to get rid of this? Because whether you get um my least favorite politician, Byron Donald, I can never get his name right. I don't he doesn't deserve me to get his name right. Um, whether you get him or the Democrat, it's gonna be pretty much Florida's gonna have the same problems as it has before. So how do you reach across, I hate to say reach across party lines, but to reach, to work in hand, because I don't know anybody in the Green Party that's running for Florida governor. I don't. It may be somebody out there. I don't think there is. Um, how do you work together? I think that's what I'm getting at. It's like, how do you work together? How do all the little Davids uh work together to take down the two big Goliaths?
Well, the first thought is focusing on what we can do now, as opposed to and then developing goals that we can tackle on a longer term. So Florida has government transparency is going to be a big deal, right? This idea that that decisions are being made behind closed doors, right? Smoke filled rooms. Uh, the regardless of whether you're a Democrat or Republican or something else, everyone appreciates the fact that you don't want your politician. You want to make sure that your politicians aren't lying to you, and that the justifications for their actions are real. And if you don't have access to public records, they'll always be able to get one over on you. So that's always that strengthening transparency laws is one thing. I think part of the other conversation had been now we know that Florida can just make a bunch of medical mandates on people, whether it's on abortion or on other healthcare decisions for themselves. If some they want to ban by introducing like bans on different healthcare procedures themselves, or forcing you into it. Right? People don't realize that the state of Florida is saying that if you are the victim of rape or incest, that they are forcing you to keep a child as a product of that. So yeah, I mean, there are concerns out there on a moral basis that people do want people to have some more freedom on, certainly. Then there's it comes back to just the environmental issues, and all water in Florida is actually owned by the state, and so the state or local governments can just, without a vote, create a contract with Nestle and for control of our water, of our spring waters, our natural drinking water, or they can even dump chemicals into our drinking into running water, our waterways, without any real consequences if they harm somebody. So there's a movement to try and create a legal standing to sue polluters, for instance, on behalf of waterways. Because we don't have we just that's it sounds weird, but that's the only options one of the only options we have to do that. And on the other side, I mentioned earlier about the school to prison pipeline system. You know, this is something that there's certainly we all have a wide agreement on how to tackle. We can roll back the minimum sentencing requirements that judges are feel like they're locked into. We can educate. We can start promoting informed juror practices to try and eliminate some of these laws in the first place as well. So there, and lastly, Florida has the reason why there's such an entrenched power structure, regardless whether it's Republican or Democrat in the state of Florida, is because the laws exist that say that all of your elected officials, for the most part, except for school board and judges, have to be elected at a partisan level. So they have to, and for the most part, they're elected as a result in closed primaries that you don't get a vote in, but you have to pay the taxes. But you still have to pay the taxes. Those people elected at closed primaries, set those tax rates to. So if we can lower those barriers of it has to be done at reducing the threat of elections being decided at closed primaries, then it gives the opportunity for everybody else to have a chance to actually have an effective choice of their candidate and have effective elections in general as a result. And that I can talk about that all these ideas for a long time, but the point is that we have them. We have issues that none of us disagree with, absolutely none. And when the People's Party tried to come to Florida, they were blocked from even running candidates because they got their qualification, and then the election administrator said, "Oh, your candidate has to wait 365 days because you guys haven't been in a party long enough to actually field candidates." They tried to sue. They didn't succeed. No People's Party in Florida, basically. So I can go on and on with examples like this, but again, it comes back to, as I said from the beginning of the program, who voted for this, and do we need it, right? So if the politicians definitely do not feel like they don't feel like they're answering they need to answer to us, and they don't need to tell, and they're the only ones who need it because they're trying to help their political careers or help their friends make money with the patronage system. you know and this isn't a working system. It works okay for a lot of people, but it's only okay, right? People know that this could be a lot better.
Yep. And guys, we are at closing. I want to thank everybody for watching today. I appreciate it. Like I said, next week we will be back at our regular time, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know this was a later podcast than normal, but again, I had another commitment that I had to honor. So remember to like this podcast, share it with all your friends. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And finally, like, share, comment, subscribe. Only you can help us to get to that 500. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you Saturday for the Saturday show. Um, I'll see you then at 7 o'clock p.m. this Saturday. Thank you all. Have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Tracy.